Shalom lekulam, and welcome to our weekly study in the Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Vayechi, and in this parsha we're going to be studying basically the blessings, some of the blessings that Yakob gave to his sons, and we're gonna study that, and we're gonna study also the importance of the blessing that was given to Yehudah, and also the blessing that was given to Asher, Naphtali, and Joseph. So stay with us so we can go deeper into this portion of the Torah, Parshat Vayechi. Welcome back. This week's Parsha, as we mentioned before, is Parsha Vayechi. Parsha Vayechi is found in the book of Bereshit, that is Genesis, on chapter 47, verse 28, to chapter number 50, verse 26. And as always, let's have a review of what the Parsha talks about and the way we can put our study into context. And what we're going to find in this Parsha is that it's going to talk about that Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. And before his passing, he asked Joseph to make a promise that he will bury him in the Holy Land, in the land of Israel, Canaan. Then he blesses Joseph's two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and they get also elevated to the status of being basically one of, or actually two of the tribes of within the nation of Israel. And something happened here, which we're also going to be talking about, is that Jacob wants to reveal the end of days, what will happen at the end of days to his children, but he's prevented from doing so. We're going to see what happened, how that happened in some keywords that we're going to find in a verse in the Torah. And then we're going to see that the blessings then that Jacob gives to his sons. What we're going to see is that Yehudah is blessed with producing leaders, legislators, and kings. Also, Levi is blessed with blessing of having priests among them. Issachar with scholars. Zabulon is going to be blessed with seafarers, and Simeon is going to be basically like school teachers. And Gad is going to be about soldier or armies. Dan is blessed with judges. Dan coming from Din, right? Judgment. And Asher is blessed of being basically like a farmer of olive growers. Reuben is rebuked for what he did with his father's marriage bed. Shimon and Levi are basically also rebuked for what they did in the massacre of Shechem, and also for the plot against Joseph. Naphtali is granted basically the speed or the swiftness of a deer. Benjamin is it's basically the being ferocious and as a wolf. And Joseph is blessed with what is called beauty and fertility. And these are keywords because beauty and fertility have to do with beauty is Jacob and fertility is Joseph. So he's blessed with the energies of the Sephirah Tifaret and the Sephirah Yesod. What we're going to see is that then after this, Jacob dies, and a large funeral is made for Jacob, and also the Pharaoh's ministers, and they buried Jacob at the Machpelah cave. That's where in Hebron, where Abraham and Sarah and also Yitzhak, were buried. And then what we're gonna see is that Joseph also dies. He dies at the age of 110, but he dies in Egypt, and he instructs the children of Israel to make sure that when they get out of Egypt, to take his bones with them and take his bones to the Holy Land. And before he passed away, he actually tells the children of Israel that even though there will be kind of like a test for them, to be in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, he says that God will surely remember you and bring you up out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's how basically the book of Genesis, the sheet, ends with this narration or explanation how the children of Israel got there into Egypt and what was going to happen to them in the future. But as we mentioned before, Jacob wanted to tell them about the future, about the end of days, but he was stopped, and we're going to see why is that. So let's start going deeper into the Parsha, and so we can now understand what happened when Jacob started giving the blessings to his children. And we're not going to touch all of these blessings. We're going to touch some of them, and we're going to see what is the secret behind this blessing. So let's start in chapter 47, verse 28. Basically, Vayechi Yakob be'eretz Mitzrayim. Yaakov lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. Sheva Esra. And the days of Yaakov, the years of his life, were 147 years. And what we're using here is the explanation of the portion by Rabbi Yakob Buhaseira. And Rabbi Yakob Buhaseira start asking, why the length of years of Jacob's lives is less than his father and grandfather, and even even though he had less years of life, he was considered basically the patriarch of choice for the Israeli people, right? And still, also his bed is described that it was whole, meaning that his offspring, even though we know what happened with Joseph, they're still considered perfectly righteous, even though we know what Shimon did as well to Jacob. And also, Jacob Haseira said, also we're going to see that Hashem referred to Jacob by his own name, by the name El, Aleph Lamed. This is from Bereshit 33:20. And then he asked, why did Jacob did not have the same long years as his predecessors? Is it possible that despite this, Jacob's age is actually an indication to us to his greatness? So to explain that, he says, we have to look at the name Yaakov, which has a numerical value of 182, which is equal to the name Yod He Vav He 7 times. The number of years he lived, 147, equals to the name Ehyeh 7 times. And he said that we know the name Ehyeh is the outer, basically, is the outer aspect of the name Yod He Vav He. And this is from Zohar Hadash, Yetro 47a. He says, that this is a high level that Yaakov, or father, attained, that he merited to have the name of Yod He Vav He 7 times, as well as the name Ehyeh, which is the outer garment of this name, 7 times as well. And this is why Jacob, even though he has less years than his predecessors, is considered to be the patriarch of choice for the Israeli people. Now, chapter 48, verse 8 and 9. And Israel, and you see the difference here from Jacob, now we use the name Israel. Israel saw Joseph's son, and he said, "Who are these?" And Joseph said to his father, "They are my sons, who God has given me here." He, meaning Israel, said, "Bring them to me, if you please, and I will bless them." And in Hebrew, basically says, "Veira Israel et bnei Yosef veomer mi ele." And these two words, mi ele, are important because mi ele, mi means who, and ele these. Mi ele, when you put these letters together, they form the name Elohim. And what is happening here is the following: when the letters mem and yod, which is for the word mi, are removed from the name Elohim, the letters that are left are Aleph, Lamed, Hey, and it symbolizes basically that these three letters, Aleph, Lamed, Hey, it symbolizes that there's a separation between the holy and the rest of creation, meaning that there's a dominion of the Sitra Acha. And as it happened with the golden calf, when they say, Ele Elohecha, these are your Elohim, these are your Ele, your Elohim. This is from Shemot 32:4. And since Jacob knew that Joseph married an Egyptian woman, he thought that maybe his sons are not connected to this lofty energy, if you will. They're not connected to the Creator properly, so he called, mi ele, who are these? Just to see, that these kids, not connected to the light. So he says, Rabbi Yakob says, so when Yakob saw Joseph's two sons, he wanted to bless them, and he asked Joseph those things. Who are these? Mi ele. In other words, he was asking the letters Mem, Yod, disconnected from the Aleph, Lamed, Hey, and has this relationship that Joseph had with this Egyptian woman has created an offspring or offsprings that has separated the name of the Creator, God forbids, right? So the answer that came from Joseph was the following. He said to his father, "They are my sons." Basically, he's telling his father, they are born from me, from holiness, from a righteous person. Yesod is a tzaddik, right? A righteous person. And then who God has given me here. So he adds, basically that he says, Hem asher naten li Elohim. So these are the ones that the Creator or the Elohim has given me here, so mi ele, and then with the answers that came from Joseph, that these are the sons who Elohim has given me here, is telling him these kids are connected to the light. They haven't been disconnected, even though they were born from an Egyptian mother. These are, we can say, basically, these are the first sparks that we are bringing up from Egypt that we were supposed to save. Then he says, bring them to me, if you please, and I will bless them. This is Jacob saying that to Joseph. Now let's go to chapter 49, verses 8 and 9. Yehudah, you, your brothers, shall acknowledge, your hand will be at your enemy's nape, your father's son will prostrate themselves to you. Yehudah is a lion cub. From the prey, my son, you elevated yourself. He crouches, lies down like a lion, and like an awesome lion who dares rousing. So, Yakob Hasera asks us basically that we can, look at the Shar Hargir Gulim. I'm gonna read from Shar Hargir Gulim a little bit. But what he wants us to understand in Shar Hargir Gulim Hagdama 15, that they are holy and lofty souls that are held captive by the other side, by the Sitra Achra, and it does not release these souls as long as these souls are under the control of the Sitra Achra. And the Sitra Achra feeds off of this soul, and it is provided life through this soul. If these souls will be released, the life energy for the Sitra Achra will be diminished. Therefore, Sitra Achra does not permit these souls to enter a higher place of holiness, because if they escape, they will never return to this darkness that they were in. So I'm gonna read from Hakdama, Char Hagigulim Hakdama 15, specifically the part that says feeding the klipots. Returning to the topic, since the divine presence is among them, divine presence is among the klipots, it is clear that the klipot will receive sustenance, flow, and life. The divine presence is not exiled among them except because of the souls. So therefore, the entire desire is to draw souls to be among them, be among the klipot, to detain them from living so that they can be supported because of them. According to the extent of the greatness of the soul, is the extent of the amount of abundance that flow to them. Therefore, when there is a valuable soul, they will not leave it, allowing it to depart from them, and their entire drive will be to sully and defile it with all they can, in order to detain it from them forever, so the soul cannot go higher, right? Sometimes they fear that certain great righteous person will do an important mitzvah and will have the ability to remove the soul from among them, drawing it out through his seed from a holy union with his wife. And therefore, when they see a certain evil person who is very blemished, they go to great trouble and accuse before him, before the Creator, may his name be blessed, this soul, to accuse this soul, to have it put into his impure seed, so that as a result, the damage will occur to the soul more than in the beginning, and it will become extremely blemished. In this way, it will return to them very blemished and never be able to escape them. So that's basically what Rabbi Yaakov Haser is trying to explain to us in this verse, and we're going to see then why is this. So he continues saying that Sitra Achra will see the soul has a blemish. It allows the soul to ascend to a higher plate. It assumes that the soul will not escape its grasp. So what the Creator does when he makes the person, this is what the Creator do, he makes a person do something that Sitra Achra, the Sitra Achra, we see as a great sin, then the soul will be allowed to ascend to a higher place. Afterward, the Creator helps this person until he is cleansed and remains completely holy, leaving the Sitra Achra with no control over the soul of this person. This is precisely what happened to Yehudah, and this is what Yakob is explaining to his other sons, that they should not think that what happened between Yehudah and Tamar, which we talked about it before in the previous Parsha, was a sin, God forbid. To remove this thought from their mind, Yaakov said, Yehudah, in the presence, Yehudah, you, your brother, shall acknowledge. The name Yehudah is related to the word Hoda'ah, acknowledgement. Yaakov say Yehudah names testifies of his impeccable character. Also testifies that your brothers will acknowledge you, that you did not do anything wrong with Tamar. Furthermore, also we see that the name Yehudah also contains the four-letter name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. This testifies that the Creator is with Yehudah and will not allow you to sing. And what took place with Tamar, to the contrary, He says, your father's son will prostrate themselves, meaning that lofty souls are captured by the Sitra Achra, and it only releases them if it finds a blemish within them. This incident with Tamar took place so that the Sitra Achra will release the holy soul from its grasp. And you must not think that Yehudah was surrounded by the Sitra Achra and basically let himself be controlled by these desires and committed the sin with Tamar. Rather, that this indicates that Yehudah, he was holy. And it says, your father's son will restrain himself. And it says, your hand. In other words, the reason you extended hand to Tamar is because it will be at your enemy's neck. The enemy forces of the Sitra Achra, says Rabbi Yakob, are stiff-necked. Kashay Odef. When they have lofty souls of the grass, they will not permit these souls unless they see a blemish in it. Therefore, the incident with Tamar took place so the Sitra Achra will think that there's a blemish, then I will leave that soul, and that way, the soul somehow cannot, basically will need to return and will not leave after the return. Through this, the opposite happens of what they expected. Your father's son will prostrate themselves to you. Yakob, the Yehudah is a lion cub from the prey. My son, you elevated yourself. He crouches, lies down like a lion. Due to the great strength that Yehudah had in order to fight against his Sitra Achra, he attained this high level of holiness, and he took these souls away from the Sitra Achra and is unable to remove them from his grasp. So the Sitra Achra will not take hold of these souls again. And the proof is, that the royal dynasty of King David was built upon these souls, and also it shall last forever. Then on chapter 49, verse 10 says, the scepter shall not depart from Yehudah, nor a lawmaker from among his descendants until Shiloh arrives, and he will be an assemblage of nations. This shows basically what really was happening between Yehudah and Tamar. That what happened there, even though the Sitra Achra thinks this was a great thing, it wasn't a great thing. It was basically in order to confuse the Sitra Achra, and that it was basically the creator tricking the Sitra Achra so these souls can be released and taken to a higher place. Then on verse 11, chapter 49, verse 11, he will tie to the vine his donkey, to the vine branch his donkey's offspring. He will cleanse his garments in wine and his robes in the blood of grapes. So this is explaining that Jacob's bed was perfect, without any blemish, and that all his children are considered to be tzaddikim, righteous, and he and his son correspond to the Shekhinah, as when we go to the Zohar, volume 3, page 78a, the 12 tribes for 12 boundaries. What are these 12 boundaries? These 12 boundaries are referred to the configuration called Tifaret, the Sor of Anfiim, of the Sephirot, the divine attributes in the tree of life, in which there are 12 diagonal lines connecting them. The 12 tribes correspond to these 12 lines that are going to be in the tree of life. I think I have a diagram. So these 12 tribes from 12 sections of the Shekhinah refers as the tribe of God, the tribes of God, a testimony for Israel. This is from Psalm 122:4, and also says all these are the tribes of Israel, 12, and these Sot. And if you have studied with us, when the word Sot, Zain, Aleph, Tav is used, refers always to the Shekhinah, and we will see this in the Zohar, volume 3, page 297b. And then that the word Sot it has to do with the Shekhinah. So when we see that, so therefore says 12 and Sot. meaning 12 tribes, and the Shekhinah are synonymous, for they are the 12 sections of the Shekhinah, the 12 tribes, right? And we find that the Shekhinah is referred as the city of Hashem, and the people of Israel are referred as the grapevine, as the verse says, for the vineyard of God of hosts is the house of Israel. This is from Yeshayahu chapter 5 verse 7. Also, the people of Israel are called Sorek, the choices of the grapes. It is written, I have planted you from a choice grapevine, a Sorek, entirely and faithful seed. Is also from Jeremiah chapter 2:21. And this refers to Jacob and his son, basically the whole house of Israel. The grapevine refers to the sons of Israel. As the verse says, you transported a grapevine, meaning the people of Israel from Egypt, referring to Psalm 80 verse 9. The faithful seed, Serah Emet, true seed, refers to the offsprings of Yakob as truth, Emet, Aleph Men Tov. As truth refers to Yakob, and the verse give truth, Emet, to Yaakov, Micah 7:20. This is from the book of Micah 7:20. So we find that the letters of Hashem, Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, can be combined also in 12 different ways, and these 12 different ways allude to the 12 tribes as well. So what it says here is basically that the 12 tribes are firmly rooted in holiness. Therefore, we must conclude that Yehudah and the incident with Tamar has not compromised any holiness at all. And now we can understand what it says. He will tie to the vine representing Yaakov, his donkey, which refers to the 12 tribes. And although in the Torah you're gonna see that the word used for donkey is Air, it also means city, alluding to the city of Hashem, which is the Shekhinah. So it says he will tie down the vine, his donkey, to the vineyard. The vineyard or the vine branch, this refers to Yaakov, who is referred to as Sorek, as we mentioned before, and his donkey's offspring referred to Yaakov's offsprings, as it says, the word Atono may be read as Eitano, bedrock, as the tribes are called the bedrock, the foundation of the earth. This is from the book of Micah, chapter 6:2. And he says then after that, he will cleanse his garment in wine. This refers that each of those tribes, the 12 tribes, that each one shall cleanse his garment in wine. In other words, that each of them are clothed with the power of holiness, which repels the Sitra Achra and prevents it from approaching them. It is inconceivable that the Sitra Achra should have any control over them. So, just a little hint, whenever we see the word wine, also means the light of Chokmah, light of wisdom. And he will clean his garment in wine, and his robes in blood of grapes. The word Anabim, grapes, represent 4 of the Creator's name as follows. The name Yehovah may be spelled in full, and we have seen this in previous lessons, in which the values are going to be 72, 63, 45, and 52, meaning the Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon. And the value for Ab, 72, is spelled Yod Vav Dalet, Hey Yod, Vad Yod Vav, Hey Yod. And then for the Sag, 63 is spelled Yod Vav Dalet, Hey Yod, Vav Aleph Vav, Hey Yod. And for Ma, which is 45, is spelled Yod Vav Dalet, Hey Aleph, Vav Aleph Vav, Hey Aleph. And for Bon, which is 52, is spelled Yod Vav Dalet, hey, hey, vav, vav, hey, hey. And all these letters, when the values of all these letters, it has an acronym. When you use the first letter of the Ab, Sag, Ma, and Bon is Ain, Samek, Mem, Bet. In these letters, these 4 letters have the numerical values of 172, which is the same as the word Anavim for grapes. Okay, and what you're gonna see is that this 72 has to do with the Sephira Chokmah, 63 has to do with Sephira Bina, 45 has to do with the Sephira Tifaret, and 52 with Malchut. Okay, so that's how you need to see these 4 different ways of spelling the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. But the final Hey on each of these names correspond to the attributes of justice. There's a note I'm gonna read. It's each name contains 4 aspects. The Yod correspond to Chokmah, the initial Hey correspond to Bina. Understanding this way, the Vav correspond to Tifaret, and the final He correspond to Malchut, which is the aspect of Din, which is justice, which we mentioned before. As the law of kingdom is immutable, meaning suggesting that the word Dinah, justice, may be arranged to spell, Adonai, which is Adonai God, applying that justice stems from the sovereign of the Creator, sovereignty of the Creator. When we take the final Hey that represents justice from all the 4 names and spell out in full the resulting letters are Hey Yod, Hey Aleph, Hey Hey, and these have the numerical value of 46, the same as Bedam, in the blood, indicating that if anyone is trying to harm those who fear the Creator and who value His name, it is the kingdom of heaven that will wage war against those who spilled blood of these people who fear the Creator. And also the first letter of the verse, the part of the verse that said his donkey to the vine branch, his donkey's offspring. This letter, the Ain, the Vav, the Beit, and the Aleph have the numerical value of 79, the same as the name Boaz. And this is referred, that Boaz is or was the reincarnation of Yehudah, and therefore Boaz is going to be strong like a lion, overpowered the Jesse had as well. And when he woke up to find Ruth lying in his feet as well, this is how he overcame, the Yetzirah when that happened. And Yehudah and Tamar, Boaz and Ruth. Hope you see, relationship there, what's really happening. And this is why Yakob said Yehudah is like a lion cub. This is clear proof that what took place between Yehudah and Tamar was done in holiness and purity. And we can see, it's like Yakob Hasid is trying to make this clear. This was part of what holiness, or holiness was supposed to be involved in this. It wasn't just something out of lust or anything like that. So chapter 49, verse 13, Zabulon shall reside by seashores, he shall be at the ship's harbor, and his last border will reach Sidon. So in order to make this a little bit short, so we can, have time for all the other, what you need to understand is that and this is something you can find when you read the book of Jonah. In the book of Jonah, if you read the sub part of it, is that the ship symbolized the body, right? And she symbolized the body, and then what you're gonna see is the sea. The sea basically is like the journey that the person has in life, and the shore, the shore of that sea is basically like the world to come, right? And the land of or land itself, whether it's the land of Israel or something like that, is considered then the Garden of Eden. And in here, what we're gonna see is you have the ship that is in the sea. That's your life in the tumultuous sea that you need to, basically sail using different techniques and skills and all that. But shore, that's where you feel safe, right? You feel safe. And from the shore, why are you going to the sea? Because you need to transfer maybe goods from the land to another land or something like that, or bring things, from the sea, like fish and things like that, in order to feed those in the land. So you gotta see it this way, in a spiritual way, okay? Because what he's trying to tell us here, that Zabulon shall reside by the seashores. What it means is the following: that basically, that those of us that belong to the house of Israel, we should be happy with a portion, because this means, that the seashore symbolizes the synagogues and the Beit Midrash where we study, and that basically we can spend time there and merit there, the chance and the opportunity to go to the upper Gan Eden, right? So a person who spends time in the synagogues and the Beit Midrash, put his trust in the Creator, he must truly understand as well that the Creator is the only one that sustains him, nourishes him, and watches over each person individually. And also that the sustenance doesn't depend entirely on the person's effort, but that the Creator is the one that also provides to this person's livelihood. He says, Zabulon shall reside by the seashore. The word Sevul refers to Gan Eden. The word Sevul applies as basically means like a residence or reside. And I have surely built a house of Zebul residence for you. This is from Malachim Kings 1, chapter 8, verse 13. Gan Eden is the place where all the souls reside. And then, but the seashores, like I mentioned before, refers to the synagogue and the Beit Midrash, the house of learnings, and where the sea of wisdom is found. You might ask how he earned a livelihood. The next verse provides then this answer: he shall be at the ship's harbor. He will be basically provided, as it is explained also in Proverbs 31:14 in the Ezekiel. She is like a merchant ship. From afar she brings her sustenance. And his last border will reach Sidon. The person that relies on the Creator most of the time and trusts the Creator most of the time, and he knows that the Creator watches over him and all that. And this is what gives meaning to the word Sidon. This person knows that the Creator is watching over him, and this person knows that Sidon, which has a numerical value 154, is the same numerical value as Elohim Chaim, the living God. In other words, the main confidence of this person is that the Creator does what Psalms 32:10 says: one who trusts in Hashem, kindness surrounds him. Now in chapter 49 verse 14 and 15, it says here, Issachar is a strong-boned donkey. He rests between the boundaries. He saw tranquility, that it was good, and the land that it was pleasant, and he bent his shoulder to carry a burden, and he became an endured laborer. So Issachar, the name Issachar, it says Rabbi Yakob Haseira, is a contraction of two words. Yesh Sachar, there is a reward. If a person is careful regarding, the prayers, mincha prayers, represented by the word Sachar, Sachar, as they both have the same numerical value of 520, Sachar and mincha, he'll be rewarded with 310 worlds, the numerical value of Ish, Yod, Shin. It is a strong boned donkey, he rests between the boundaries. So the person that does great things in this world and breaks the power of the Hamor, which is a donkey, the donkey also represents the Sitra Achra, whose power is between the boundaries, between night and day in the afternoon. This person will see the tranquility that is good. Basically, by praying the mincha with great care, the person will enjoy tranquility in the next world. Mincha may also be read as menucha, which means tranquility. As a reward for mincha, he will be granted menucha, tranquility. And the land that is pleasant. The verse continues, he saw tranquility, that it was good, and the land that it was pleasant. The land referred to the upper world, meaning the Shekhinah. During the time of the mincha, the time of the mincha is full with judgments. If a person says the mincha prayer with care, he sweetens these judgments, making them more pleasant. Therefore, the person will receive sweetness and pleasantness from the next work. That's why it says, ve'et ha'aretz ki ne'ema, and the land that it was pleasant. So the person will receive that pleasantness of the land. And he said he bent his shoulder to carry a burden, and he became an endured laborer. This is referred to the effort this person is making, learning the Torah, learning different levels of the Torah, and also with the prayer. He reads himself from the burden, which is mass, which is man, and Samek, the vanities of this world, and I set upon himself the burden of working for the Creator. And when we're saying this, we're not talking about, for example, we have rituals, we have these things that we do in Judaism, and it's not necessarily that burden, it's the intention behind those actions that we do that will make us good labor. Because we see here different tribes being blessed, but all these aspects of the soul of Israel, the 12 tribes, are within us as well. So this is what you're gonna see here, is how these forces are working within ourselves as well, right? Then he goes to Dan on chapter 49, verse 16-18. Dan will judge his people. The tribe of Israel will be united as one. Dan will be a serpent upon the road, a viper upon the path that bites a horse's heel, so its rider falls backward. For your salvation do I long, O Hashem. So Dan will judge his people. Dan comes from din, which is judgment, right? So that's Dan Yadin Amo. Dan will judge his people. The tribe of Israel will be united as one. Meaning that in the eyes of justice, all these tribes will be seen equal. And the word Amon, which is nation, implies that the judge will consider all these different tribes as equal. There will be no difference between them. They will be the same under the law. they will be united as one, meaning that all these tribes also will be called God's children. There's no only one chosen of these tribes that was called God's children. It's all of them together actually is called the Creator's children. Then will be a serpent upon the road and a viper upon the path, meaning that he will be basically in the road, meaning the straight path. Whoever goes astray from the path of truth, it is he who will be afflicted by the serpent, meaning the Sitra Achra. And then the true justice will crush the skull of the serpent, right? Then chapter 49 verse 19-20, God will recruit a regiment and it will retreat on its heel. From Asher his bread will have richness and he will provide kingly delicacies. We need to understand that tzedakah is one of the actions are the most elevated when it comes to practicing good deeds, right? And one of the things is that tzedakah it's a strong force. In the Psalms it says, his tzedakah endures forever, his charity endures forever. This is Psalms 112 verse 3. And it says in Sha'ar Ruach HaKodesh, from the writings of the Arizal, that this is true when a person does a tzedakah, and in his mind he has the intention, or she has the intention, of unifying the Creator with the Shekhinah, right? And if we go to Pirkei Avot chapter 4 verse 11, we're gonna see that in there it says also that whoever does a mitzvah, any mitzvah, he wins for himself or herself an advocate, an angel that will defend him in front of the Creator when judgment comes. So God will recruit a regiment. The letters Gimel Dalet for God are an acronym for Gomel Dalim, one who provides for the poor. So a person that recruits a regiment, many legion soldiers will emerge from him. This refers to the angels created by this act of kindness that will serve as an advocate. Basically, it's a regiment of angels created by these actions, right? And it will retreat on its heel through this act of kindness, a tzedakah, that this person does. He will destroy and uproot the serpent, the Sitra Achra. And he says, you will bite his heel. This is from Genesis chapter 3:15. The word Yagod, retreat, also means uprooting. As the verse says, uproot Gadol, the tree, from Daniel 4:11. It says here basically that whatever the laws of the Creator has put in the universe are laws that go measure for measure. They don't, if you take 50, the law will take 50 from you. If you take 50, if you give 50, the law will give you 50, right? And things like that. And the laws of the universe, basically the tikkun that you have to make, has to be equal to the sin or the fault that you have created in the spiritual realm. So the word tzedakah is spelled out in full as Tzadid Dalet Yod, Dalet Lamet Tav, Kuv Yod Pei, and Hey Yod. The added letters, eliminating basically the first letter for all of them, that is Dalet Yod, Lamet Tav, Vav, Pei, and the letter Yod. When you add them, they have the value of 551, which is the same numerical value of the word Me'asher. And in the Zohar, volume 1, page 246b, says that the Shekhinah receives abundance mainly from the divine attribute associated with Asher. Also, it's alluded in Shemot 21:10, and in the word She'ara, provisions, referring to the sustenance of the Shekhinah. When a person does tzedakah, pursues the mitzvah of tzedakah, this person receives abundance from an attribute known as Asher. From Asher, his bread will have richness. In other words, the word tzedakah, aluz, when it's spelled in full like we did, you add 1, have the same numerical value from Asher, as we mentioned. And it teaches that when a person does a tzedakah, receives abundance from the attribute of this of Asher. He will provide kingly delicacies. Through this act of tzedakah, he causes the Shekhinah to receive abundance from the Melech, which is the king, referring to the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven, of course, we know it's ramping. Naphtali is a deer let loose who delivered beautiful sayings. And here, Yakob has explained this, that when a person learns Torah for Torah Lishma, Torah for Lo Lishma, for his own sake, basically for ourselves, he doesn't cause any unification with the Creator or anything like that, because it's an egoistic way of studying Torah. But then if the person studies the Torah for the Creator's sake, that means Lishma, the person then causes a unification of the Creator, his Shekhinah, and the delight of his words of Torah, will really, bring this person light. And then he talks, this is especially for these people that get up at night, in the middle of the night, to study Torah. As you know, there's a tradition of Kabbalists getting up, at 3 a.m. in the morning, or when it's considered, midnight, and to study Torah in order to sweeten the judgment, right, of those hours. And so from Asher his bread will have richness. It goes back to this verse of Asher. He says that the letters of these 3 words, the first letter of all these 3 words, spell mashal, which means proverb, referring that the Torah is basically considered an ancient proverb, and the word Shemenah, richness, is comprised of the same letter as Mishnah, and the word Lachmo, Lachmo from Lechem, alludes to the Torah, is called bread, Lechem. This is from Hagigah 14a, Talmud Hagigah 14a. In addition, the word Ma'asher, from Asher, Mi'asher, alludes to Torah, as the verse says in Proverbs 3:18. Those who support it, meaning the Torah, are fortunate. Ma'asher. And then it says here that also the first letter of this verse, which is Me'asher, Shemona, Lachmo, Vahu, can spell the word Lishmo, meaning for his sake, for the Creator's sake, meaning studying Torah for the Creator's sake. And actually, he says in here, that the ideal time to learn Torah is after midnight, for this is when Hashem delights with the Yelet HaShachar, the morning deer, which refers to the Shekhinah. Naphtali is a deer let loose. This occurs at midnight, when the King of the Universe connects with the Ayala Shelucha, a deer let loose, referring to the Shekhinah. The word Naphtali implies a connection, meaning I have become entangled. Naphtali, Hashem with my sister, and also I have prevailed. This is from Bereshit 38. The words, Ayala Shelucha, meaning, a deer that was sent or let loose, refers to the Shekhinah because the messenger of the Creator, the verse saying, may the angel that redeemed me, this is from Bereshit 48:16. Naphtali is a deer let loose who delivers beautiful saying. So the last letters of these first 5 words are Yod, He, another He, Nun, and Yod, and they have the numerical value of 80. 80 is this numerical value also for the word Halayla, the night. This actually is telling us that when the Creator connects with his Ayelet Ehabim, beloved deer, referring to the Shekhinah, when they delight in the sound of people learning Torah is after midnight. And then it says, who delivers beautiful saying. At that time, the words of Torah are beautiful sayings. And the verse says, it is beautiful to declare before you, Daniel 3:32, the words of Torah spoken at the time are precious and accepted by the King of the universe. And there's a note in here that says that this doesn't mean that the Torah, when it's studied in different times, is not accepted. It's rather that when the Torah is learned at midnight at that time, it's a special time because the beloved to the Creator, it is special beloved by the Creator, and is more readily accepted than Torah learning other times. And not only that, when you get up early to study Torah, meaning early midnight, it's a very good time. It's only quiet, and there's more, more like a meditation preparation for the rest of the day, before you do the prayers in the morning, all that. But also, for some reason, you see that you will feel something. Just try it. It is a custom by the Kabbalists to get up early and study around that time, and it's because of that. Now let's go to Yosef, and we probably gonna be past the 1 hour, and this is very important. This part is probably the most interesting one, so don't miss it. A charming son is Joseph, a charming son to the eye. Each of the girls climbed heights to gaze. They embittered him and became his enemy. The arrow-tongued man hated him, but his bow was firmly placed, and his hands were gilded from the hands of the mighty power of Yakob. From there he shepherded the rock of Israel, from the God of your father, and he will help you, and with Shaddai, and he will bless you with blessings of heaven from above, and with blessings of the deep crushing below. Blessing of seed and blessing of womb. The blessing of your fathers surpasses the blessing of my parents to the endless bounds of the world's hill. Let them be upon Joseph's head and upon the head of the ones set apart from his brother. So we have mentioned before that Joseph basically corrected one of the sins that Adam did, and is the seed of spilling seed. And that's the reason why Jacob, when he was 130 years, came down to Egypt. But it was through Joseph that this kind of tikkun was done, even though it was Jacob who was supposed to do this tikkun. And also we have mentioned that Joseph has the same numerical value as the Yehudah multiplied by 6. Joseph also refers to Yosef, which has the numerical value 161. And also the word Porat, charming, is comprised of the same letters as Toref, which is a female organ. And basically saying, that even though he was basically trying, or he was tried by the Yetzer Hara to blemish that part, so Joseph couldn't do this tikkun. He was strong enough to withstand that and not blemish the Brit. The name Yosef contains 6 times the name Yehovah, And like we mentioned before, the numerical value is 156. Also, what we're gonna see is that let's go to the verse, a charming son to the eye. The numerical value of Samael, the evil angel, is 131. The same as the word ain, plus for the word itself, when we add one, to the evil, to this, it's a evil eye. The numerical value of Yosef is 161, right? The same as Yanecha, your eyes, plus one for the word itself. Yosef, 2 eyes, overcame the eye or the evil eye of Samael. So this is basically a battle that was happening in the spiritual realm. And then what we're gonna see is that he says here, each of the girls climbed heights to gaze. And who are these girls that Yakob is talking about? These are the female angels, Agrat, Naama, and Lilith. They jump from place to place trying to entice Joseph to basically stare at them, to look at them, right? And also the word, shur, which is the word for heights, right? Also means staring. But it was not only the female powers of the Sitra Achad that pursued Joseph, the male power pursued him as well. This is the meaning of the verse. They embittered him and became his enemy. The arrow-tongued men hated him. The arrow-tongued man is basically the evil angel that we mentioned before, because we don't want to mention the name a lot, right? In fact, some Kabbalists just mention the name Sam, and that's it. But his bow was firmly placed. The word for his bow refers to the brit that is called keshet, bow. And you guys remember the quote that Joseph had, which has many colors, right? So the keshet here is the rainbow, right? The rainbow. And it has 7 colors, right? Which represents the Sephirah Tifaret, and all the other Sephirot as well, and Joseph. And his hands were gilded. And then he goes here, from Shar Hagigulim, he talks about the 10 drops that drip through the 10 fingers, which refer to the 10 martyrs and that kind of stuff, which we're gonna skip on that, because it's gonna take us away from where we wanna go. From the hands of the mighty power of Jacob. How did Joseph the Tzaddik reach a level of holiness, as Rabbi Yakob has said? The answer is from the hands of the mighty powers of Jacob. As we know, this is from Zohar Volume 1, page 100a. Jacob and Joseph are considered as 2 parts of the same body. Yaakov is the body, whereas Joseph is the brit. We have mentioned this before in another Torah lesson. And when the name of Hashem is spelled out in full, the Vav becomes Vav Aleph Vav. And Yaakov and Joseph are considered as 2 parts of the same letter. Yaakov is the primary Vav and the first Vav, while Joseph is the secondary Vav, which is absorbed by the primary one. It says when it's spelled Vav Aleph Vav, the letter Vav. And his arms well gilded from the hands of the mighty power of Jacob. And from there he shepherded the rock of Israel. The rock of Israel refers to Shekhinah. It's in the Zohar, volume 1, page 198a. And when I mention these Zohar pages, just go back, and read them if you had the Zohar. And now Joseph was the viceroy of the land. Then we're going to go to chapter 49, verse 25-26. From the God of your father, and he will help you, and with Shaddai, he will bless you with blessings of heaven from above, and with blessings of the deep crouching below, blessing of seed and womb. The blessing of your fathers surpasses the blessing of my parents to the endless bounds of the world's hill. Let them be upon Joseph's head and upon the head of the one set apart from his brothers. So the blessing that the patriarchs receive allude to the name of the Creator. The name Yitzhak has the numerical value 208, which is the name Yohevah 8 times. The name Yakob has the Yohevah 7 times. And the name Yosef has the Yohevah within itself 6 times. And Yosef is considered equal to Yitzhak and Yaakov, as each of their names are multiples of the Creator's name. But what about Abraham? Why Joseph is set apart from all the other tribes in that sense. The name Abraham has a numerical value of 248, which is 8 times the name of the Creator El, Aleph Lamed. The name Joseph likewise is a multiple of this name El. It is 5 times this name actually, adding 1 plus 1, So it turns out that whatever it contained, the names of the patriarchs, is also containing Joseph's names. Furthermore, the value Joseph name times 2 and adding 2 for each name is 314, which is the same as Hashem's name Shaddai, and that's why Yaakov mentions Shaddai. This is another allusion that whatever blessings the patriarch received, Joseph also received. Remember, Joseph is the Sephirah Yesod. So all these blessings that these other Sephirot are receiving are going to go to Joseph, and Joseph will be the one giving them to Malchut. And curious note, 314 is pi. Pi is used to measure circles, kind of stuff. So, and in the Torah, if you study the Torah from the mathematical point of view, you're going to find also codes that have to do with Fibonacci sequence. It have to do with pi itself, and it has to do with fractals, this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of material, not only from people that study Torah, but also academic material out there that are studying this thing, found in the Torah, that are like kind of codes that are hidden in the Torah, and it's very interesting. So look it up. From the God of your father who will help you, and that means Abraham contains the name El, and with Shaddai he will bless you. Meaning remember El Shaddai, that Abraham knew about it, right? We knew about this name. With blessings of heaven from above, with blessings from deep crushing below. Abraham embodied the attribute of Chesed, and Yitzhak the attribute of Geburah. Then the Kedah, what Abraham did at that moment, or the Creator did through Abraham, was to sweeten this attribute. So what he's saying here is that even though Joseph had those 2 attributes, it became basically the attribute just became subdued by Abraham, traits of kindness. And Joseph, with blessings of heaven from above, refers to the attribute of Chesed that he received from Abraham. And with blessings of the deep refers to the Yitzhak attribute, the attribute of strength or judgment. And then it says, and with blessings of the deep crushing below, meaning the subdued attribute of Geburah to Chesed, and this is what Jacob received. Yes, he received judgment, but it was subdued by Chesed. It was subdued by kindness. Then he talks about blessings of seed and wood. Berachot, Shedaim, Berachem. Seed correspond to Abraham, and wood correspond to Isaac. And both of them shall become one body, right? That will Chesed shall dominate from above, as does the seed, where the attribute of Geburah judgment will be subservient to it, as the womb is to the seed. The blessing of your father surpassed the blessing of my parents. Yakob was also named Israel, and with this name Yakob was more praiseworthy than Abraham and Isaac, and name of which is a multiple of, or names that have the multiple of Yohevah, as is the name Yaakov as well. Abraham names on the other hand, is multiples of the name El, and Israel contains the letter of this name. And we have mentioned before that the name Israel It's significant because it has the numerical value of 541, and it's the same numerical value of the initial letters of the 10 Sefirot, Kahab, Hagat, and Nahim. And the blessing of your father surpassed the blessing of my parents. Basically, what Yakob was saying, my blessing surpassed the blessing of my parents. Hashem blessed me and called me Israel, which contains the 10 Sefirot mentioned above. The endless bounds of the world's hills, meaning, that refers to the Sefirot and the foundation upon which everything is basically rooted. Let it be upon Joseph's head and upon the head of the one that set apart, who is set apart from his brother. And it says here that in Kabbalah, in the spiritual realm, and also in the Zohar, what we're gonna find is that the 11 tribes are considered feminine, whereas Joseph is considered masculine. And that's why Joseph is called also set apart from his brothers. Then it says, chapter 50, the 50th chapter, verse 19 and 20. Joseph said to them, fear not, for I am instead of God. Although you intended to do evil to me, God intended it for good, in order to accomplish, which is clear as this day, that a vast people be kept alive. And the intention here was basically that Joseph wanted to tell his brothers that the descent to Egypt was part of a plan of the Creator in order to gather the sparks of holiness that were dispersed there. And this is what he tells them, fear not, for I'm instead of God. Basically, I cannot take God's place. He did this, and I have no reason to be mad at you for what you have done. And although you intended to do evil to me, God made it for good, right? And so a vast people can be kept alive. This refers to the sparks that were in Egypt, the sparks of holiness that were in Egypt, so they can be lifted there, so they will not die and be basically, like we mentioned before, trapped by the Sitra Achra. I know we have passed already for 1 hour, but this Parsha ends the book of Bereshit. And what we need to take from this Parsha is basically that all these blessings, and go back and read the Parsha, not necessarily studying it from the Kabbalistic point of view, just read the Parsha, read each of the blessings, and try to meditate on each of these blessings, because each of these blessings have something to do with our internal midot, or internal traits, and see what they mean to you. Because this is the end of a chapter, and a new chapter is coming. A new chapter of now these sparks are gathered. These sparks are ready now to be born again, to be born a different way. Go through this. They're in the womb. Now they need to go through Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, and be born and become something called Israel. And we didn't have time to mention this, but I mentioned before, is that Jacob wanted to tell his children about the end of days. And what he says is basically that, I'm going to read it quickly so you guys, don't lose this. He says, he said, gather yourself and listen, O sons of Yakob. This is Yaakov. I'm going to tell you about the end of days, but then something happened. He says, and listen to Israel, your father. Now it says, Yaakov, the lower part, that means Yaakov, the one that is connected to Bina, and Israel is, it's the Galul connected to Rachel, which is Malchut. And once Yaakov asked them, to gather after he had already requested of them, to assemble, he said, what does then he's asking to them to listen to the father Jacob. And basically it's that what happened was the following: that when Yaakov Avinu has reached a certain level of spiritual perfection, he was granted the name Israel. Thus, the name Israel signifies a higher spiritual plateau. When Yaakov Avinu attempted to reveal the secret of the end of day to his sons, the divine presence departed, and Yaakov descended to his lower spiritual level of Yakob. He therefore summoned his son, the son of Yaakov specifically, his lower spiritual level, did that. Upon realizing his error, he abandoned his desire to reveal the end of the days. The divine presence then returned, and he concluded saying, "Listen to Israel your father," and proceeded then to do blessings instead of telling them about their future. Okay, so I'll leave you with that, and that was actually from Ramchal, commentary on the Torah portion. This concludes our study of the Parsha. If you're seeing us before Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you in the next portion of the Torah, which we're going to start a new chapter in the story of what I call the tikkunim of humanity through what is called Israel, those who want to go directly to the Creator, Yashar Kel. And the next chapter is called the Exodus, Shemot. But Shemot doesn't mean Exodus, means names. And that's when a new story is going to start, a new character or main character is going to come into play, which is Moshe. All right, so I'll see you next time. Shalom and lehitraut.